Hello, this is Kyle from Midnight Paranormal Files, and this week we are going to be talking about UFOs. I'm here alone again by myself without Gage or anybody. Hopefully that'll change here soon. But let's get started. We are going to be partic- We're going to talk about Elmwood UFOs, which is a small town in Wisconsin. It is over by between Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. So it's kind of like in the western part of the state. And there has been a lot of UFO sightings, and it all started back in like the mid 70s, about like 74, 75 ish. And we're going to be talking about it today. Now, Elmwood has population is about like a little underneath 500 people that live there. So that's about the scale of the town and stuff. Um, there has been uh, there's a lot of stuff that has been going on there, like police officers reporting UFOs and bunch of our stuff, and even a UFO festival every year, which I went to the one this year. Back, it's in the last weekend in July, I believe. Yeah, I think it's the third weekend in July that it gets hold on every year, and yeah, that's what all I gotta say about Elmwood is that they got a UFO festival every year. There has been a lot of sightings started in 1970s, like mid 70s, and there are still sightings to this day of sightings of these UFOs. Okay, so these are like the things I have about stories of Elmwood UFOs and stuff. Uh, all right, and here we go with it. Elmwood claims to be UFO capital of the world. The title is well earned, according according to Center of UFO Studies in 1987. Only locations in New Mexico rival Elmwood for more high quality sightings and encounters. We have been nearly 50 UFO reports in Elmwood vicinity between 1968 until 1988. What's more, Elmwood was once considered for a UFO welcome center like the one in Spielberg's movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That never happened, but the UFOs keep coming away. Here are a few stories that made Elmwood famous for UFOs. School teacher Carol Forster. This is in March 2nd of 1975. These sightings are like about like a few months apart from each other, or even a month. Okay, school teacher Carol Forrester and her children were driving home after dark to the rural Elmwood home where they noticed a bright star that seemed to be following them. It drew closer. They stopped at a local farm and pointed it out to Tom Weber. On resuming their drive home, the star intercepted them, nearly landing on the road in front of the vehicle. Forster described it as two saucers that have been put together and was white in color with lights all around it. Stick like legs protruded from the bottom. It appeared to be about the size of a car, but more circular. Terrified by the encounter, Forrester retained to the retreated to the Weber farm for an escort home. Weber says the bright object followed them for some distance before abruptly decelerating away. And this is a quote from this guy. I never see anything travel as fast as this, what, that, when it finally decided to go, he said. Later that night, the object could still be observed hovering in the distance. Okay, the next sighting is from Officer George Wheeler on April 7th, 1975. Early in the morning, near the end of his shift, Officer George Wheeler was north of town when he saw a bright light like a ball of fire approaching from the sky. He assumed it to be a crashing plane. He drove into the ditch for cover, but the light passed over silently and at tremendous speed, making a right turn to cut across town. Wheeler drove to the south side of the village and on top of the Turtle Hill for a better observation. He described the object as a cigar shaped 100 yards long and briefly hovering before accelerating off in the direction of Ellsworth at tremendous speed. Several other sightings also occurred that same night. This is Paul Fredrickson on October 20th, 1975. Nursing home director Paul Fredrickson and his son were driving over Turtle Hill when his son pointed out a bright object on the horizon and asked if it was a full moon rising. Fredrickson replied, "That's one of them. Because of the moon doesn't go that fast." He pulled his van off the road and they jumped out to watch a huge gray metallic object pass about 800 feet overhead. It made no sound except when it got right above us. There was a soft whirl. It passed over the village before shooting away. Fredrickson later had a second encounter in which he and another motorist were intercepted by a bright light, and as in the Carol Forrester story, he was also a witness of the night of Wheeler's second encounter. And this is back with Officer George Wheeler and for the April 22nd, 1976. A year after his initial encounter, Officer Reb Wheeler saw a glow he assumed to be a fire on top of Turtle Hill. On arriving, he discovered a strange lit object which he estimated was about 500 feet distant and hovering above 100 feet off the ground. He said it was between a limestone quarry and a farmhouse in the area. There were six blushing white lights, windows or potholes on the side, and he could see shadows as if someone was moving inside of it. In the middle of the side facing him, there appeared to be an open panel. Wheeler could see inside to a mechanism revolving slowly. It had fin like parts on it, similar to a turbulin. The craft had some type of landing gear, partly extended from the main body of the object, and a long black hose like a pelagid. I don't know what that word is. On the bottom, the main body of the craft appeared silvery in color. On top of it glowed on oranges, white, and so bright that it was difficult for him to look at this that part because it was like looking into the sun. The object started to race straight up and extremely high speeds and issued a blush flash whirl up behind the squad car. The light and the radio went dead. Wheeler's car was discovered in the road with the lights on and a police officer dazed and disoriented. Wheeler was hospitalized and his car was also damaged. The spark plugs were found to be burned out and the starter was melted together in a big lump. And I think I also heard that he actually passed away like 6 months later after that witness or after that report of his too, which is pretty sad. Uh the explanation of the death, nobody knows what happened. But yeah, those are just some of the weird stories of Elmwood. I figured to share it because it is interesting. Uh and also one of the guys that was on a tour bus because they got a little tour for this. He said that he was at his house or whatever, and he saw like a UFO like right in the corn, not in the cornfield, but right next to the cornfield, like probably like 300 yards away from his house or whatever. And that is pretty weird also. And with the R's, and they do have like a drawing because I'm reading this over a piece of paper that they gave me back when I was there. But anyway, uh yeah, it's very interesting stories. Um that was the guy that was telling me about the story with the house or whatever. He was actually one of the kids in Carl Forster's car or whatever. So that is an interesting thing to add on to this too. Um, yeah, there's a lot more than just those 4 or 5 of them I talked about today. Like there's a bunch of them. Uh, I'm trying to find out where. Yeah, it doesn't really say when it the UFO festival is, but I'm pretty sure it's like the last weekend in July or second to the last. It's like towards the end of July that they have the festival every year. And they had a couple paranormal or had a paranormal team that was a vendor there. Uh I talked to them because I actually met them before what's over at Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. That's the last time I seen them. What back in October of last year. So that's just another thing I seen there. I got a bunch of buttons from the place, and also it was just a fun time actually. But yeah, it's just interesting what that one of them was not even like a regular UFO. It was like the weird looking cigar shaped craft things, which probably look like a tic tac, probably. Is what I'm guessing what it would probably look like is a flying 100-foot long tic tac in the air. That's how I picture those kind of UFOs. And then, yeah, I guess some of them that they were telling me about when I was at Elmwood is that some of them actually dance in the air and stuff. Like they have like one bigger ship, and the people that talked to me said that it was that could be the mothership, and the R ones are just like the smaller ships or whatever. So I thought that was interesting also. I did find another story with a town or two nearby Elmwood. This one came from Plum City, which is a very small town, probably doesn't even have a population sign. It says about the same time as George Wheeler's first sighting, there was a UFO flap in this area. Elsewhere, Plum City, Elmwood, River Falls, that was in the spring of 75, and people were going out at night in carloads to certain places in this area looking at these things, said MUFON investigator Dr. Jack Strack. I talked to several people during that time. There were two excellent sightings. Carol Forrester, who lived just outside of Elmwood, which we just talked about, and Mr. and Miss Gibson of Plum City. They actually saw a structure. The story of Elmwood teacher Carol Forrester encounter is well known and told in previous articles. The story of Plum City UFO is more obscure and has nearly been forgotten. It happened in March of 14th of 1975, the night after high-profile UFO sightings in Mellon and Ashland, Wisconsin, and only 12 days after Forrester's frightening encounter. Two young couple snowmobiling in the woods near Plum City encountered a UFO. The encounter occurred well past dark. Documents indicated it was nearly 10:30 p.m. when Mr. and Miss William Gibson of Plum City and Mr. and Miss Michelle Kitchener and Madden Rock saw two bright lights coming over a hill and a big red light associated with it. Miss Gibson later told the story to Dr. Jack Brostrack, professor of biology at University of Wisconsin River Falls and MUFON UFO investigator. This story seems to suggest they first saw the light approaching from the above the tree level in a rural wood area where they were snowmobiling. Gibson said they were initially assumed they were seeing lights from a road in the distance. They thought the approaching lights belonged to a car coming over a hill. Then they realized there was no road in that direction. Meantime, the light kept drawing closer. Finally, the object came into view. It came down, Gibson said, almost to the treetop level and just hovered there. That is a pretty interesting story. So yeah, there's just a lot of them, and they also got a picture of what the thing looks like, and it looks like a regular saucer or whatever. It's from like the 1950s movies or whatever, what you see inside your head, but it's this rounding in the front of it, and then like a tail looking thing on the back and four legs. I'll probably post this down in the comment section down below, but I just thought I'd share that one too. They had, but yeah, Plum City is south from Elmwood actually. Like they got a map right here on there too, so I'm right on their website. And yeah, I'm gonna probably end this podcast now and stop talking about UFOs for the day. But I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Leave a review. Start following us on Spotify and all AR place that you guys listen to podcasts on. And I hope you guys have a good week and day or whatever. And I'll talk to you guys in the next podcast.